Located in the northwest of the USA, Yellowstone is a national park of the superlative. The impressive whitewater of Old Faithful is today one of the most famous and most photographed natural spectacles in the world. For more than a century, this mighty geyser has been the proud and unique landmark of the oldest national park in the United States. Old Faithful was discovered in 1870 during the first official expedition to the Yellowstone area. Close to Old Faithful is the 1.5 kilometer long Upper Geyser Basin. Here there are further geysers that are well worth a visit, including Castle Geyser. The geyser derived its name from its appearance. Its lime deposits have gradually created a form that resembles a castle. The Yellowstone National Park is famous for its highly visible geological processes. The area close to Old Faithful not only features a number of geysers, but also numerous hot springs. They highlight the tremendous thermal power that lies beneath the Earth's surface. The volcanic history of this fascinating region began around 50 million years ago with the emergence of the Absaroka Mountains. Past tectonic activity here has determined the landscape of Yellowstone right up to the present day. There are huge masses of lava below the Earth's surface. Due to this, the Yellowstone region rises about 2 centimeters each year. In this region, the Earth has an unusually high temperature. Those who first came here must have been frightened of the steaming hot water pools and geysers that they encountered. And even the local Indians avoided the mysterious springs. So it was the white settlers of North America who discovered this geothermal area. They traveled into the remote Yellowstone region at the beginning of the 19th century. On their return to civilization, they told of their amazing discoveries. In those days, this area was referred to as the Witch's Bubbling Kitchen. However, few believed these eyewitness accounts. They put them down to gross exaggeration and even lies. At that time, there were several rumors of hidden treasures in the great wilderness of the American continent. But the discovery of the Grand Geysers was most certainly not a fantasy that had been dreamed up by the first pioneers who had ventured into this area at the beginning of the 19th century. Today, the Grand Geyser is the largest active geyser in the world. Its huge eruptions occur every 8 to 14 hours. The eruptions of the Grand Geyser last for 9 to 12 minutes and can sometimes reach a height of 60 meters. The spasmodic geyser is one of the most active hot springs in the national park, although its fountain is far smaller than the others in the vicinity. derived its name, spasmodic geyser, due to its irregular and unpredictable eruptions of water. The water comes out of around 20 openings that are situated on the rim of two large craters. Each fountain varies in height. The Sawmill Geyser was given its name due to a strange sound that was heard when its fountain of water spurted up from the ground. Geyser Country, one of the 5 regions that make up Yellowstone National Park, and particularly Geyser Basin, are famous for their large number of hot springs and spectacular geysers. As with most of the park's geysers, the Orem Geyser was discovered at the end of the 19th century. The geysers within the Geyser Basin also date back to that time. Nathaniel Langford was responsible for most of their names. He was a member of the Washburn expedition in 1870, one of the first to enter the Yellowstone region. At Doublet Pool, iron oxides give the stone its characteristic and fascinating colour. The brown, partly reddish-coloured stone adds yet more to the beauty of this place. The first inhabitants of this fascinating landscape were the Sheep-Eater Indians, who settled 12,000 years ago in the region of today's Yellowstone National Park. An ancient people in an ancient landscape. West of the Upper Geyser Basins is West Thumb, a striking feature of the large Yellowstone Lake. Although the geysers of West Thumb are not as active as those in other areas of the park, bubbling hot pools of water are still a common sight. In the West Thumb region, it is the subterranean supervolcano, Yellowstone, that is responsible for the temperature of the water. The Yellowstone is one of the largest volcanoes in the world. Because it is located directly above a geological hotspot, a huge cave constantly fills with magma. It is situated at a depth of 8 kilometers and is the main reason for the park's visible geothermal activity. Abyss Pool, a combination of several pools, is 17.5 meters deep. It's the deepest hot spring in the national park. The magnificent Abyss Pool contains an incredible array of colors. Since the 1970s, the thermal activity in West Thumb has shown a noticeable decline. Thus, its many pools and hot springs have cooled down. This has led to an increase in the growth of algae, particularly cyanobacteria. However, it has been human activity that in recent years has transformed Abyss Pool. Visitors to Abyss Pool were once in the habit of throwing coins and other objects into the water. So an opening in the spring became blocked, and this has consequently brought about a reduction in the water temperature. In addition to the natural springs and geysers, it is also nature that makes Yellowstone Park so appealing. The scenery here is simply magnificent. The 32-kilometer-long Yellowstone Lake covers a large area south of the national park. Covering 354 square kilometers, Yellowstone Lake is not only the park's largest lake, it's also the largest mountain lake in North America. It is home to many rare water birds. In the northeast of the lake is Steamboat Point, the next destination on our journey through Yellowstone National Park. In recent times, an increasing number of scientists have become alarmed by the increasing temperature of the region's land surface. They fear that this could lead to an increase in the activity of the supervolcano. The magma cave within the Earth is gradually filling up, and this is causing the land in this region to rise 2.5 centimeters each year. The steaming terrain on the banks of the lake seem to add further credence to this theory. A new eruption of the supervolcano could even change life on Earth. The most recent eruption took place here around 13,000 years ago on the northern perimeter of the lake. It left a huge crater, Mary Bay. Close to the former crater is the northernmost section of Yellowstone Lake, Fishing Bridge, the perfect starting point for further exploration of this region. A bridge was built here in 1902, and the present bridge dates back to 1937. As the name Fishing Bridge indicates, this structure was once extremely popular with the fishing fraternity. It was an important fish breeding area. In 1973, fishing at Bridge Bay Bridge was banned. Today, visitors are only permitted to watch the trout that swim in the waters of Yellowstone Lake. Here, fishing is strictly forbidden. A few kilometers north, close to Yellowstone River, is a further geological attraction. Mud Volcano. However, today it is no longer active. Its once impressive volcanic activity has now come to an end. Eruptions such as those once described by members of the historic Hayden expedition of 1871 are only rarely seen today. But the gases that continue to emerge from Mud Volcano still indicate the geothermal activity that takes place within the Earth. And it continues to heat the water here. Mud volcanoes are actually hot springs. They originate in areas that have a low inflow of groundwater. The loamy ground is full of volcanic ash, so the mud here is constantly heated. In such places as this, it is advisable to be cautious. Any mistakes could lead to severe scalding. 1 kilometer from Mud Volcano is the area of Sulfur Cauldron. Here, the heat from the earth also emerges from numerous fissures. The ground close to Sulfur Cauldron is not only hot, it's also very muddy. Sulfur Cauldron has a pH value of 1.3. It's one of the most acidic springs in Yellowstone National Park. There is a splendid mud pool that has developed around the spring and which attracts a great deal of interest. The Yellowstone River originates in the northwest of Wyoming. It's the park's largest and longest river. The Yellowstone River is more than 1,000 kilometers long and flows in a northerly direction. It can be extremely fast-flowing and treacherous. It provides an important habitat for various indigenous species of fish, as well as numerous rare water birds such as pelicans and Canadian geese. While gazing at the torrential waters of the river, there is much to see. Many creatures like to spend their time in the shelter of large rocks, and the Yellowstone cutthroat trout is very popular with fishermen. Some of the calmer, more northerly sections of Yellowstone River are abundant with fish and have developed into a paradise for anglers. Large groups of anglers come here to try their luck and to catch some of the river's tasty and much prized trout. The park's wildlife does not only inhabit the river. The river banks often contain a member of North America's animal kingdom, the bison. These mighty wild cows have become a symbol of the local fauna in Yellowstone National Park. The spacious grassy areas of the unspoiled park provide a perfect living space for the bison. Thanks to this nature reserve, these massive animals have managed to survive and can still be admired today. In the 19th century, the bison that once traveled the prairie in herds of 100,000 was almost completely wiped out by the white settlers who traveled west. Thankfully, today there are 350,000 bison on the North American continent, and the largest population lives right here in Yellowstone National Park. Further upstream, we arrive at one of the park's most spectacular landscapes. Yellowstone's Grand Canyon contains a wonderful variety of spectacular vantage points, but none of them is as remarkable as that of Artist's Point. From here there's a view of the most picturesque part of the canyon. Typical of the canyon is the orange-red color of the stone and steep rock walls that plunge down between 250 to 400 meters into the depths below. There are trees on the upper edge of the canyon that is around 32 kilometers long. A kilometer downstream in the vicinity of Yellowstone's Grand Canyon is the fascinating Lower Falls. The water of the Yellowstone River crashes down 94 meters into the depths of the Grand Canyon. A truly unique and natural spectacle. Lower Falls is one of the most famous waterfalls in North America. Those early pioneers who first came here at the end of the 19th century were amazed by what they saw. Indeed, they recorded their wonderment in various written accounts. Close to Lower Falls, beyond the next bend in the river, is the wonderful Upper Falls. Trapper James Gemmell, who travelled through this area in 1846, was the first to describe the beauty of this waterfall. The power of its water is truly amazing. There are several vantage points that provide marvellous views of the waterfall. Here, nature has created an intriguing work of art, and when the sun shines, there's often a magnificent rainbow that originates at the foot of the waterfall. In the northern section of Yellowstone National Park are the elevated terraces of Mammoth Hot Springs. Led by Ferdinand van der Veer Hayden, a famous geological expedition explored this area in 1871. The Sinter Terraces are the main landmark of Mammoth Hot Springs. The warm water that emerges from the hot springs is rich in lime and minerals that spill over the terraces. Over the course of time, lime and minerals have been deposited here, thus creating these striking white terraces. In the shallows between the various terraces, there is much algae and bacteria. The varying temperatures in the pools create a fantastic variety of color. Due to new deposits of sediment, the flow of water is constantly changing, so influencing and varying temperatures on the terraces. The Sinter Terraces of Mammoth Terrace Springs are the subject of constant transformation. During the year, the pools change color several times. They shine out in hues of blue, green and red. The entire area contains around 60 thermal springs. Mound Terrace was once one of the most beautiful springs in this region. However, for some time now, the spring at Mound Terrace has dried up, thus it's less popular than it once was. Minerva Terrace is one of the most recent hot springs in Mammoth Hot Springs. This terrace began to form at the beginning of the 1990s. Again, this spring has not always been active. Despite its young age, it has managed to create in just a few years a surreal landscape of stone. Palette Springs is aptly named. The water here sparkles in many shades of brown and red, as though from an artist's palette. Sulfur is also released with the hot water. Although the native inhabitants were well acquainted with Mammoth Hot Springs, there are no traces of Indian settlements in this area. Perhaps they were afraid of the mysterious terraces. Even today, the many invisible geological processes of Yellowstone National Park create a mysterious atmosphere. But it's the region's seemingly mystifying natural processes that have been taking place here for thousands of years that are the reason why this landscape is so fascinating. The hot springs and terraces of Palette Springs create an extraordinarily picturesque scene that cannot fail to captivate all who come here. On the edge of Angel Terrace are a number of dead trees, remnants of the area's most recent forest fires. This place became famous for its striking white stone. Here also are reddish rocks whose colour originated due to the various bacteria in the water. As in many other sections of Yellowstone National Park, the geothermal activity of Angel Terrace is difficult to predict. In this part of Mammoth Hot Springs, the proximity of the surrounding trees and white rocks is particularly beautiful. Although for some time the spring on Angel Terrace has not ejected any water, it has begun to bubble once again. The water that comes out of the volcanic earth contains a lot of lime and minerals, and the stone continues to renew itself with further splendid colours and forms. The travertine terraces in the northern section of the park are extremely rare. There are few places in the world that compare with this. In contrast with the upper part of Mammoth Hot Springs that have now mainly dried out, the water in the deeper section still continues to flow. The unique value of this extraordinary natural landscape was first recognized many years ago. Indeed, in 1872, it became a protected area. After following the road south, we arrive at Roaring Mountain. It is thought that Roaring Mountain really did roar at the beginning of the 19th century. But today, it's mostly a sulfur-taran field whose many fissures belch steam. Nymph Lake is just a few kilometers south and is also located alongside Park Loop Road. This small lake was once mainly known as a habitat for the local wildlife. However, in recent years, Nymph Lake has aroused the interest of various geologists, as a long cleft has been discovered in the banks of the lake. A fishhawk circles majestically above the lake. It also lives in Yellowstone Park. Around the lake there are many reminders of the most recent forest fire in this region. Although the last major fire here was in 1988, the consequences of these devastating events are still plain to see. Then almost 4,000 square kilometers and more than 2,000 of forest were destroyed by the flames. Fortunately, nature has since recovered. Everywhere there's new life. Magnificent flowers and blossoms grow once again in the region's meadows and forests. The most recent forest fire of 1988, although devastating, had a rejuvenating effect on the park. Indeed, scientists have discovered that forest fires are part of the natural circle of life in Yellowstone National Park. Some kilometers south of Nymph Lake is a further geothermal area, the Norris Geyser Basin. This area is unique among the landscapes of Yellowstone Park. It's not only the park's hottest area, but also boasts the largest geyser in the world, Steamboat Geyser. Unfortunately, the activity of Steamboat Geyser, whose fountain can sometimes rise to a height of 130 meters, can be somewhat irregular. When examined closely, the pools of Norris Geyser Basin often look like miniature landscapes that date back to prehistoric times. There is no plant life here. The temperatures in Porcelain Basin are far too hot for vegetation. Another reason for the complete lack of plant life in the basin is the high acid content of the thermal water. But the high content of acid in the water favours the growth of a unique type of bacteria that creates a large variety of colours in the various springs of this region. In the green glimmering emerald spring pool, the blue of its 8-metre deep water combines with the yellow colour of the sulphur at the edge of the pool. The thermal area of the Norris Geyser Basin is one of the most famous areas of the national park due to its fabulous variety of hot springs and geysers. Despite the many visitors who come to this region, the surrounding forests continue to be inhabited by wildlife. Deer are particularly common and don't appear to be too much impressed by the presence of man. Halfway between the Norris Geyser Basin and Madison Junction is Gibbon Falls. Here, vast masses of water race down 26 meters. The edge of Gibbon Falls is a remnant of the mighty Yellowstone volcano. For thousands of years, this section of the crater has been crossed by the Gibbon River. South of the small village of Madison, there's yet another beautiful waterfall in this truly amazing park. Firehole River, that originates in the Lower Geyser Basin close to the famous Old Faithful, can be extremely treacherous. The Firehole Falls are only 13 meters high. Although not the park's highest or indeed largest waterfall, the place is quite captivating because of its beautiful scenery. And the fish-filled river is also popular with anglers. After visiting the waterfall, we enter the nearby steep canyon of Firehole Rivers. Close to Lower Geyser Basin is the colourfully named Fountain Paint Pots. As its name suggests, this area is particularly well known for its various bubbling mud pools. The intensity of the activity in the mud pools varies throughout the year. When the groundwater level is high, as in springtime, when the snows have melted and there's more rainfall, much of the thick mud turns into a runny liquid. There are many wooden walkways here, so it's easy to observe the colourful mud pools at close quarters, but without the danger of injury due to the unpredictable eruptions of the pools. In this area of fountain paint pots, there are several small geysers. The deer have learned to coexist with the local geological activity. There's a great deal of wildlife in Yellowstone Park. Following a short journey further south, we arrive at our destination, the Midway Geyser Basin. This area features a very large number of sizable hot springs. The spring water makes its way between the rocks while travelling into various cracks and rivers. It constantly carves out new forms in the rock. For some time, the Excelsior geyser was the world's highest geyser, but at the end of the 19th century, its thermal energy gradually fizzled out. However, in 1985, it had a new lease of life, but its fountain was not as powerful as it once was. A huge crater and active thermal spring have remained. 250 litres of hot water per second flow from this spring. The size of the spring in the Excelsior geyser is only surpassed by one other spring in Yellowstone, the Grand Prismatic Spring, that has a diameter of 110 metres. The apparent calmness of this thermal spring belies the fact that each minute more than 2,100 litres of water flow out of the Grand Prismatic Spring. This picturesque location, that derived its name from the former Hayden expedition of 1871, provides yet another fascinating natural wonder at which to marvel, and which adds more mystique to Yellowstone. Although Yellowstone National Park is important for North America's plant and wildlife, this 9,000 square kilometre nature reserve is primarily a geological park. Amazing, fantastic, incredible, and wonderful. How can you put into words a place that provides so many remarkable glimpses of the inner workings of planet Earth?